when we came to Palo Alto, I felt I'd returned home. And this is after thousands of miles of travel and living all over the world. And I really felt I'd arrived finally to settle down. And I was hired by the City of Palo Alto to work for George Morgan, the city manager. And my direct boss was Wally Carroll. And we just had a really wonderful rapport. And I loved being at the front desk because I loved people, and I loved the experience of greeting people and directing them. And it was always quite fascinating for me. And I have always been a people person, so they had me in the right spot. I had a background in the arts. I had studied commercial art and wanted to be an artist, which is what my biological father was in Germany. He was a very fine artist. And my mother, having remarried to a rocket scientist, he was the one who brought us to Palo Alto ultimately, and that's how I ultimately made my way to the City Hall. Well, as an artist, or as a commercial artist, I noticed that the city at the time was producing reports and materials that did not look terribly, well, didn't look the way I wanted it to look as a commercial artist. And so I started designing for the city. And lo and behold, as I was doing all that and enjoying my work very much, I looked around and I thought, you know, the city doesn't have a flag. I spoke to the city manager and I talked to Wally Carroll, and they were all for it. They liked the idea a lot. And so I went about researching flags all over the country and looked at what did cities do and how did they express who they were or are. And so it took me several months, and I looked at many, many, many flags. And then I thought, well, I'm going to do a real conscientious and conscious process here. And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I said, this is Palo Alto with wonderful weather, blue skies. It's just marvelous here. Then I thought, and I was very involved with understanding that the city was known for its many trees and for its parks and for its trees, having planted so many, being very, very thoughtful about that all along in those days. It was quite amazing. And then I thought about the university being here and the people's future and the wealth of knowledge and wealth of inventiveness and all the things that seem to be in the heart of this beautiful, beautiful city. And so I decided on the colors. I said green for the trees, blue for the wonderful weather, white for the future of this beautiful city, and the gold was also representing the wealth of the city in more ways than the obvious. And so I went out, and I was making very little money at the time. $350 a month is what we were being paid. But then, you know, and so I went and bought the fabric with my own money, and I took it home, and I was a single mother at the time, so I had my 3-year-old next to me, and I very carefully laid it all out, and I hand sewed every stitch by myself, and I didn't have a sewing machine, but I sewed it carefully and with lots of love in my heart. I just put a lot of effort into it, and with great joy. And well, when I was finally finished with it, I thought, I wonder if they'll accept it and will like it. And I showed it to Mr. Morgan, and so he wrote up a presentation for the city council for the meeting, and I attended the meeting with Mr. Morgan at the city council meeting, and he presented it formally. And it was quite late in the evening. It was getting later and later, and was getting emptied out, the whole place. But then the city council was asked to vote whether they would accept this flag from this little receptionist. I was only in my mid-20s at the time. And so not only did they accept it unanimously, but they stood and applauded. And they were very, very, very generous in that way. And I felt humbled and proud all at the same time, and delighted. Shortly thereafter, well, of course the media was there beforehand, before it was presented, and they did a story, and they called me the Betsy Ross of Palo Alto, which I thought was kind of fun. And I had quite a bit of coverage, or the city did, on behalf of this effort that I made. And so the flag, I took it to the San Francisco Flag Company, the original, and they then manufactured it, and en masse for the fire stations and for the police station, for the various buildings. But within a relatively reasonable period of time, I left Palo Alto to move to Santa Barbara.